All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you giving up some of your time very much to dial in. We're speaking to dozens of people live, and there will also be quite an audience for the recorded version of this. For anyone who was not able to make it, they'll be able to see the recorded webinar. So I'm sure a lot of people around the country in North America will benefit by this. My name is Steve Hines. I'm the founder and CEO of Energy Cap Inc. And I am very happy to have with me this afternoon Mardi Ditze, who is Senior Energy Analyst with the City of Philadelphia Energy Office. Mardi has agreed to spend time with us this afternoon to talk about her role, explain how the City of Philadelphia manages their very successful energy program, and she'll be talking somewhat about how they use Energy Cap as part of that. But this session isn't all about Energy Cap. It's really about how a large municipal government addresses the problems of sustainability and energy management, and the role that energy information and utility bill tracking plays in that process. The City of Philadelphia is well, near and dear to us here in Energy Cap. We're located in State College, Pennsylvania, and Mardi and I are both from Allentown, PA, just north of Philadelphia. Philadelphia spends close to $100 million a year on energy, so it is not a trivial expense. It's a major part of their budget and a very, in some cases, a controllable part of the budget. So it's something that brings immediate bottom line budget savings when energy is reduced and energy dollars are saved. Mardi, welcome this afternoon to coffee and webinar. Actually, I'm drinking tea, and you're probably having your bulletproof coffee. We'll talk more about that later. So with that, let me, again, thank you for joining us, and turn it over to you.
Thank you for that welcome, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here today to talk to folks on the line and to explain what the City of Philadelphia's goals are and what our missions are around energy. So as Steve mentioned, I am the Senior Energy Analyst for the City of Philadelphia. In that role, we engage in communities within the city. Specifically, our office engages in the departments, with departments, what we call communities, because our office focuses strictly on municipal energy use. The Energy Office is housed within the Office of Sustainability for the City of Philadelphia. The Office of Sustainability has crafted what we're calling GreenWorks. It's a vision for a sustainable Philadelphia. Within that document, there are 8 visions, and Vision 3 of that document works toward all Philadelphians efficiently using clean energy that they can afford. And within that vision is where our office ties into, because municipal buildings are a piece of that vision. As I said, the Energy Office focuses on municipally owned facilities. The core functions of our office are to strategically procure and track the data of the city's energy supply, to promote energy conservation and energy efficiency in city facilities, as well as develop and implement energy projects and programs that reduce the city's costs and lessen the city's environmental impact. So all that to say that we buy energy for the city's buildings, and then we also promote conservation, because if we don't use it, then we purchase less. And then we have projects within the buildings to help reduce energy use through LEDs or through boiler and chiller replacements and things of that nature. So the energy that we don't use is the most important energy that we have. So Philadelphia's energy, by the numbers, the City of Philadelphia has 800 city facilities. We have 5 commodities that we track within Energy Cap. The basics of electricity, natural gas, street lighting. We also have steam, a steam loop in the city, as well as fuel oil on a few of our buildings. We do have water as a commodity, but because of some of this billing and processing around our bills, it's been harder for us to capture that data. This year we've started to capture the data and line up that billing, but it's not something that we're leaning too heavily on to do just yet, but that is also another commodity that we do have. In total, we have 1,300 meters and 3,600 utility bills each month. Most of them are in PDF form. We do have a few that utilities that don't provide us with PDFs. They only do Excel files, so we do manage a few Excel files as well. The energy cost in Philadelphia, as many big cities do, we are split up into funds. We have a general fund, an aviation fund, and a water fund, as well as street lighting, which is broken out separately because they do pay their own utility bill. The general fund, which encompasses 18 departments in the city of Philadelphia, has a total cost over the years, as you can see, of hovering around $42 million. And that's just the general fund, as I said. Here's the use over a few years, and I can tell you that all of this data was pulled from Energy Cap. So I present that so you can see how it's trending over the years, and this is something that we can use to share with the general fund as well as any of the departments that are interested in what their energy use looks like. The aviation fund, this is their cost by the numbers. The aviation fund and water fund do have a team of people that oversee their energy use. So they have a more active role in their energy consumption. The general fund is a fund that our office oversees a little bit more, with more granularity than we do with the aviation fund and the water fund. But this is their use and cost. The water fund, as I said, they have their own group. Their cost is here, as well as their use. Street lighting, this is their cost, a little bit more leveled out because it is a flat load. And here is their flat load, which you will see the anomaly that I've highlighted there. Interesting story. That anomaly happened back in 2015, and I didn't see it until I generated this slide for this presentation, which led me to dive deeper to see what that anomaly was. And it turns out there was a billing error that happened, so now we're doing some work to recapture some money that's owed to the city based on that anomaly. So that's an example of ways in which you can use the data, or that the city uses the data to catch some anomalies in billing. So the value of the energy office, I'm sure some big cities may have an issue with proving why it's important to have an office and why it should be integrated into other areas of the city, whether it be another department or a fund or a budgetary reason as a line item. The reasons the city of Philadelphia points to is there's a cost avoidance, there's a value of not using energy or not using the dollars that are associated with that. Through the cost avoidance, our office does education around energy conservation so that employees understand why they should be conserving energy both at work and at home. Our office does energy efficiency projects based on the data that we're seeing through our utility bills. We can help figure out which buildings and which projects makes the most sense. We do utility bill auditing, as I alluded to in the earlier slide. We do audit our bills each month to see where there are any anomalies that we need to talk to the utility to talk about usage problems or consumption problems, or billing problems. We also participate in peak load contribution programs through the summer and now through the winter to make sure that each large user, large building throughout the city is managing their peak load at the predicted hours in which the pricing might be a little skewed for energy. All those programs together help us give the story of why the energy office in the city of Philadelphia does bring value to the city and ultimately the taxpayer. We also provide budget certainty. Not only is there value in saving budget by not spending the money, but there's value in having certainty within your budget. Through our strategic procurement, we provide that budget certainty. We go to market to purchase our energy on a scheduled purchasing plan. That we have a panel, for lack of a better term, of a group of individuals that we report to so that they know what the schedule is, what our spend is going to be, and when we're going to do it, so that there's certainty in how much we're going to be spending currently and in the out years. We also have rebates and revenue based on our demand response program. You may be familiar, demand response program is a program in which the grid calls for large users to cut back on use, and there is a dollar value associated with that curtailing on your usage, and the City of Philadelphia does participate in that program, and we get paid to curtail. Our local distribution company, PECO, has a Smart Ideas program, which we participate in. As we put in energy efficiency programs, we can apply for rebates to PECO, which we do, as well as our local or our regional grid operator, PJM, has an energy efficiency program centered around permanent load reduction, and we receive rebates from that as well, or revenue from that. So our office does engage in those types of rebate and revenue activities, so we bring added value in those ways as well. The history of data collection for the City of Philadelphia is, I believe, a similar story to many other big cities in the United States. We started with spreadsheets about 10 years ago. I'm sure that is still a tried and true way for many municipalities. Along the way, as we all know, it's cumbersome, it's very manual, there's a huge propensity for human error, and at the time only one person was overseeing that process for the entirety of Philadelphia. And as it happens, she retired. So all of that, human input and all of that knowledge retired with her, which left the city at a point where we needed to figure out what to do next. So our data collection, I started using a database that was focused on carbon, which was great for the time. We needed to find a focus and a goal, and carbon was something that we needed to start calculating. So we started with a database 6 years ago that did that. And we were an early adopter at that point. There weren't many databases at that time that we felt that we were in line to use. We were still coming off of using spreadsheets. We were still new in how to do that management and what the process was going to look like in the out years. So it was a learning curve for us coming out of that. We did, however, recognize that we needed more energy management. The carbon focus was still important, but we needed a more robust energy management process. So as I said, carbon is still tracked, but we have very regional metrics that we apply to the energy that we do manage. So 7 years ago, we implemented Energy Cap. That was the first database that we used after the database that was helping us with the carbon. This helped the Energy Office to organize and analyze the data in a way that helped us continue to meet the GreenWorks visions and carbon reduction. The GreenWorks program started 9 years ago now, so Energy Cap has been a large part of that, helping us with the data along the way to see where our goals are with GreenWorks and how far or close to the metrics we set we are. So we also use the data for projects and planning. We do that in many ways. We have now public accessible Energy Cap dashboards. This is a snapshot of what the dashboards that we share with our departments look like. We can share links with each department or individuals that are interested in energy consumption, and instead of having to log into the database, they just click the link and it updates as we update the bills within the system. So they have a live link where they can check to see what that data point is that they're interested whenever they need to. We also use the data to do benchmarking. The City of Philadelphia does have a benchmarking ordinance where buildings over 50,000 square feet have to comply with that benchmarking law. So the City of Philadelphia has to benchmark its buildings, and what we've done is gone ahead and benchmarked all of our buildings. So this map that I'm showing is a snapshot of what our benchmark buildings look like. And we can share this with, as open data, we can share this with internal folks that want to understand where they are with peers in their group. So we use Energy Cap for benchmarking through the Energy Star Portfolio Manager platform. Here are some of the Energy Star ratings that have returned to us for our benchmarking. We can see that some of our buildings, if not most of them, do not rate as an Energy Star certified building in terms of their rating. So we do have one here as an 87, and that is something that we appreciate because Energy Cap takes that data, sends it over to Portfolio Manager, and then we get that data back to be able to understand what our scores look like in the Energy Star rating. The building that I'm in currently, One Parkway building, was just certified through the Energy Star rating. And we found that out by using the software to understand how our rating was changing. And you can see through the ratings how it went through the years for us to understand where we were and how far we needed to come to get the rating. So very powerful pieces of data here. Energy efficiency projects are also something that we track in Energy Cap. This is a snapshot of all of the energy efficiency projects that we have going through the city. They're where they are locationally on the map, as well as the names of them. Again, this is another piece of data that we can share with departments or with commissioners or council members, whoever is interested to understand where we're doing work and what that work looks like in terms of data points. We're also doing a project with the Philadelphia Museum of Art. It's a guaranteed energy savings project which we did through a request for proposal. It's being run through the Philadelphia Energy Authority. So that is a project that we're currently working on to help the art museum reduce its energy costs even more. It's going to be a large project with a lot of savings to be had, but something that we need to track and needed to follow the data to make sure that it was a project of value. So we use the data in Energy Cap to help us do that as well. And we are currently, we just released a request for proposal for a renewable energy power purchase agreement that is currently listed on the Philadelphia Energy Authority's website. In order for us to be able to do that, we needed to understand our historic data, understand what our load looked like, and understand what our growth was going to be in the out years to understand how much energy we could potentially purchase through a power purchase agreement to be able to put the RFP out. So again, another powerful, no pun intended, project that we're working on that we wouldn't have been able to do without the data that we've captured. And lastly, this all culminates into what we've just put out, which is an energy master plan. This master plan is for the built environment, and it is for specifically the general fund, because as I mentioned, the aviation and water fund have their own energy focus and a team dedicated to do that. So this plan was just released 2 weeks ago, which brings together all of the projects that we want to do, the successes that we've had so far, and plans out to 2050 to understand what we need to do to hit the trajectories of carbon reduction that the City of Philadelphia wants to be on. So the plan lays that out, and all of the data points, again, were gathered from our utility bills to understand where we're going to be projecting. We did, as a side note, we did hire a consultant on that to be able to provide a tool that we can implement different types of changes in buildings or in policy to understand how that is going to impact carbon reduction as well. So it was a two-part planning process in that way. So Steve, I'm all talked out on that.
Yes, well, I'll give you a chance to catch your breath. Thank you very much. It sounds like you have your hands full with projects and data and so on. Let me ask a few questions, and then we'll go to some of the questions that members of the audience have sent in to us. The first question I have for you is one that kind of, I think, popped out a little bit from your presentation. You said you get 3,000 plus utility bills a month in PDF format, so that's 36 or 40,000 bills a year. It sounds like that would be no fun to get that data into Energy Cap or any other platform. So how do you go about doing that?
That's a great question, Steve. Thank you for noting that. So we do it in two ways with Energy Cap. We use the bill capture system for our PDFs, where we submit the PDF bills to bill capture, and they're uploaded automatically for us that way, which they do a bulk of the bills that we get each month. So that takes about, I'd say, 75% of the billing off of a manual input. And then the remainder that we do manually are the smaller utilities. So we get 20 steam bills a month. We get our fuel, oil bills annually. So those are things that we still do as a manual upload in our office, but the number of bills are so small that it's a more manageable process. So our PDFs go over to bill capture, and we do the smaller sets in-house.
Right. So you're using our bill capture service, which uses an optical character recognition process to basically scan the bills, extract all the data, and then uploads that into Energy Cap, so you get all the line items and all the rich data.
Exactly, right. Yeah, as well as a copy of the PDF. So every time we want to look at a bill, we can still see the PDF through Energy Cap. And I'll give two kudos to Bill Capture for this. There's a search function on that PDF, so you can find the exact bill you're looking for. And Bill Capture has also had the ability to read the manual write-ins of dollar values, and capture that data to put it in as well, which I thought was amazing. I thought it would only capture the line items printed on the bill, but they're also capturing any manual edits that have been done on the bill.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that's working well for you. Now, there are some very large municipalities who are on the line, who've signed up for this webinar, who probably have issues with just processing utility bills and getting them into accounting. One thing that's a bit unique about the city of Philadelphia compared to some of our other large municipal clients is that the majority of our large municipal clients pull the utility bills into Energy Cap as what I would call a smart front end on the accounts payable process. So they come into Energy Cap, whether we get them EDI or through the bill capture OCR process, or as you mentioned, you do some manual keying of some of the minor bills, and then the bills are audited in Energy Cap, and they're approved, some cases approved centrally, some cases approved by each department individually, and then they're, let's say, flushed out of Energy Cap, and they don't really leave Energy Cap, but the data is exported and sent to accounts payable, where it's sucked up into the AP system and the bills are paid from there. So it's a kind of an end-to-end system that doesn't require dual entry, once into Energy Cap and once into accounting for payment. The city of Philadelphia is not doing the feed from Energy Cap to your finance department at this time. And so can you talk through some of the challenges in trying to connect this flow, this process end to end? Because it would seem to me that it would be a big savings, because the finance department has to take the bills and enter them all over again in some way, maybe not bill by bill, but in some way they have to create an accounts payable transaction. So what are the challenges that have prevented that piece from happening to date?
At the end of the day, it's a software communication piece. Our AP group is not at a point where they can move on to a software that would be compatible with the process. Some of the bigger challenges are just the communication piece between our office and them them being accounts payable and or finance. We get the bills, and for the largest bills being supply and distribution for our city, the accounts payable team waits for our office's approval to start processing the payment. We provide them with a payment number because we have the invoices, and provide them with the invoices and the total amount to pay when we approve that for them. So we're doing an approval process in the middle there. And they're using the bills that we send them. We send them an Excel file as the proof of payment instead of using a PDF now. They used to use PDFs, but has now moved on to using the Excel file because that's something that our office can use. We can back into that and provide support should anyone along the way have a question. The finance department, we provide them with a budget number, and they work with us to understand how we got to that budget number for the utilities, and then the AP department can draw down on that. So software is stopping us from moving toward a less human interaction. Not to say that the human interaction is bad, but it would be less manual if the software in all the departments were upgraded. But in the short term, not having that, we're still processing spreadsheets and using email and phone calls to get the bills paid.
Okay. So it's maybe a bit antiquated in how you have to do it, but it works, it gets the bills paid, and I do understand that the process for a major organization, whether it's a public or a for-profit organization, to do a major upgrade of their accounting platform and all the processes tied into that is a huge expense and a major undertaking. So I understand.
Exactly. Yeah, we're just one component of a larger web. So even though it's a large dollar value, exactly. There's just too many other pieces moving that they're not. It's just not where they are right now.
Just not ready for it. Yeah. Well, hopefully at some point in the future, the city will be progressive, and the city has certainly been progressive in green initiatives and in your benchmarking legislation. And in the at the shipyard, the energy center there, and some of the things that have happened in the city.
Yeah, so I think that the writing's on the wall for all the technology in the city to start moving forward. Our office is taking first steps to have conversations with other departments about improving the technologies that are there, incorporating more building automation systems, doing more integrated, or rather just doing LED street lighting with integration in that software. So there are conversations being had, and we're pushing to get those things, and computer software is a big part of it. So I think it's just a matter of time in the short term, for sure.
I thought your story was interesting about the glitch in the street lighting bills, that literally as you were preparing the PowerPoint for this presentation, you saw that anomaly and you said, wait a second, it should be a level billing. Why is that? So I wanted to mention to any of the other municipalities on the call, if you're interested in looking for major cost recovery opportunities in your utility bills, I invite you to join us for a webinar, and we'll get all your data in Energy Cap, and we'll scrub it down, and it'll pay for itself.
Yeah, and that's not to say that we weren't running audits, because we do. We run audits every month. But for street lighting, if it's a flat load, I honestly wasn't looking that hard, and clearly I wasn't looking that hard. So I found that. So we'll see. We'll see how that pans out for us.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes you can run all sorts of audits that return audit results, but looking at something visually, looking at a simple graph and seeing a blip that doesn't seem to make much sense can sometimes be a more effective way to spot a problem.
Yeah, even when I was looking at the raw numbers, it still didn't make sense to me. I had to see it visually to see what that anomaly looked like. So you're absolutely right. Yeah,
and it helps if the PDFs of the bills are available, so you have a source document. We've had some clients who have had EDI, electronic billing, actually turn off EDI in favor of going back to paper.
Oh, interesting.
Which seems like a step in the wrong direction, but the problem that they had with EDI is there is no source document. It's strictly electronic, and people like to see the bill. And and seeing a likeness of the bill that's been created by Energy Cap or by some third party just isn't the same as the actual
Exactly.
paper bill. It's not really a source document. So,
and we've been told by our utilities that the PDF is the bill of record. So if that's going to be our bill of record, that's the one. Yeah, then that's the one that we should be using. So
right.
I can see it both ways, but it does help to have that data.
Well, let's move on to the first question from our viewers. And there you go. So what would you say for a smaller municipality, the energy management function is not there anymore? Maybe there have been budget cuts. What should they do?
That's a very challenging question, and I wish that there was a clear path ahead for that. If our office and our city believes that energy management is a core function, energy is something that can be budgeted, it can be controlled, it should be staffed because it's something that you can point toward a bottom line. But in lieu of that, the bills should be managed in some form or fashion, even if it's using EDI or using a bill scan function, something that's capturing the data and being able to put that data into a place where you can at least have it should someone decide that we need to figure out where all of our money is going or how much it's costing us or what is our budget for utilities. So you have to have that data in one place, and somehow it has to get there. So I would, in lieu of having someone, which again is something the city believes is of value to have a person overseeing that, having the bills be the data on them being captured and put somewhere so that you have it is essential. So that's without doubt the bare minimum that any municipality should be doing, regardless of size.
And we would certainly agree with that. The old saying, what gets measured gets managed, which has been attributed to Peter Drucker or Lord Kelvin or Archimedes. I'm not sure which one said it first. But having identification, having data is really foundational to everything else that you do, including simply paying the utility bills accurately.
Exactly.
It's interesting in talking to some of our municipal clients, we've seen a few cases where what had been the energy management office is now part of an office that's entitled resiliency in,
yes.
in some way. We had, years ago, maybe in the 80s, I worked with energy management offices, and then in the 90s and a little bit later, the move was to fold that into a sustainability office, and now we're seeing maybe the next phase of that, which is resiliency, which really goes beyond energy security. It goes to security of a lot of different systems. So it's just interesting to see how these things evolve over time. Okay, why don't we move on to the next one? Yeah, so how did you go about procuring Energy Cap?
So good old RFP. The city of Philadelphia uses the RFP process for goods and services bought. So we did go to RFP. Prior to going to RFP, though, that's where the interesting part was, in that we did our research before we went to RFP to understand what it is that we were looking for. As I said, we were a little bit new to specific energy management. We were using more of a carbon-based database.
Yeah.
So coming into just energy management, we needed to understand what we were looking for. So we did research for, I believe, between 6 and 8 months prior to releasing the RFP to make sure that we understood what was possible in the realm of possibility. We wanted to make sure that we were going to get proposals back and not put out a document that no one would be able to respond to. So we tried to be thoughtful in our approach to how we put it together. We did get a handful of proposals back and worked. One of the key indicators we wanted was to be able to work with the vendor to get specifically what we wanted and not be tied into an off-the-shelf software. So that was one of the key components we looked for. And then through it all, we ended up picking Energy Cap, but it was an RFP process that got there. So which we're coming to the last year of that RFP, and we'll be doing it again this year. So
Yes.
it's all circular.
Yes. And for the benefit of our audience, I should also mention that Energy Cap is also available on the GSA list. So there are, GSA is really a federal program, but there are a lot of state and local governments that buy off of GSA. And we've also sold it on a piggybacking process where the procurement office allows that. We certainly talk to a lot of folks who will do anything they can not to have to go into the RFP process because they know just what they want, and it's a lot of extra work. But I do understand in some cases it's really a better way to go if you're not quite sure what's out there and not quite sure what you want, and you want to see what the market looks like. Okay, why don't we go to the next question? Yeah, we have some clients where the maybe the energy cap is centrally managed, but the various departments actually pay a fee to maybe general services department for the cost of energy cap and the cost of one or more people to process utility bills and so on, with the understanding that that central office is providing a service to the other departments. And we particularly see that in cases where the budget has been highly distributed across the departments, where departments might pay the IT department for IT services, and they're paying general services for bill payment services and so on. How do you do it in your case?
It's a little bit similar to that. As I said, we have 3 funds for the street lighting takes care of itself, but the 3 funds, aviation, general, and water, they each have access to Energy Cap, and they each have access to the Energy Office and the staff here. So what we've done is just that. We split our time and the cost of all of that through the 3 funds. But the general fund is bearing the brunt of that because they use our services the most with 18 departments and no one overseeing energy consumption for it. Our office takes most of that work on, if not all. And as I said, water and aviation both have a group of people looking at that. So they don't pay as much into the services, but each of the 3 funds do pay a part of the bill for Energy Cap as well as for staff time. That way they do have access to us. We act as more of a support role and for the aviation and water funds, but we are the primary drivers for the general fund. And as I said, aviation and water both have access to Energy Cap, so they are able to tell us when there's an anomaly or tell us when they're owed something from the utility. So we're more of a conduit for them, so they don't pay as much into it, but we are split across the 3 departments.
We have one client in Southern California that's interesting on this topic, a large county government that has a very distributed budget with centralized use of Energy Cap for bill processing. The way they do it is every utility bill that comes in for other departments gets a admin fee actually added to the bill, and Energy Cap is something like 0.7%. Actually, I don't think they're charging enough. So we take the incoming, let's say it's an electric bill for a facility for the water department. So the electric bill comes in, let's say for a lift station. We electronically add a line item for this administrative fee and create a new transaction, which is the outgoing bill to the department. And so now the water department gets their bill that shows all the electric cost and this 0.7% administrative fee, which covers the cost of receiving the bill and processing the bill and so on by the central operation. So that's maybe going into it a little bit deeper than most departments do it, but it is a way to distribute those costs in a way that's not unlike what the utility company does, right? They add fees to bills where there's costs involved. So, Well,
The other
let's
thing
move on to
about that, I would
sorry.
say the nice thing about that is that's a great way for offices to add value to their office. So if they're going to do a line item, how much is that administrative fee? You can then capitalize on how much you're doing. So you have a dollar value
Yes.
that you can say, we processed X number of dollars for the water fund. We are worth this much at least. So it's a great way to capitalize too.
Yeah, it's a good way to fund some additional services that you can offer to others because you're becoming something like a profit center. Although you're not making a profit, but
right.
you're at least funding yourself, and you're not dependent
exactly.
upon a budget as much. And 0.7% is not going to be something that's even going to be noticed in electric bills with the way prices have been changing.
Very true.
Interesting.
Very true.
Different people handle it different ways. Why don't we move on to the next question? Why don't we take one more question? Yes, so how do you interact with the senior decision makers, those who are doling out the funds for projects, to show which projects, to use the data to prioritize projects and to use the data to show the value of the data and the value of dashboarding and sharing energy information?
We do that in a couple ways, and it's really going to depend on who's doing the asking and what they want it for. So specifically, if council is asking for something, we're going to approach them with a bigger picture. So we'll take the data that we have based on the utility bills, and then we roll it up into something which could be a guaranteed energy savings program project, or which could be an energy master plan. So we're rolling things up into something that council would want and can implement throughout the city and for their constituents. Whereas if a department is asking for something, whether it's because they're involved in some kind of capital project to redo a rec facility, or if because they want to model their energy use because an architect is asking for something, we'll generate a report based on their specific asks. We are also able to present to them what the savings mechanism can be, that if we stayed on a certain trajectory using certain standards that we've currently been using, what that looks like, as opposed to if you change, implement this, put in this chiller, or change out these lights, what that could look like instead. So we can do some analysis for them in that way, so they can understand what the impacts of their performance are going to be. So it really depends on who's asking for what and what they're going to use. But we found that all of the tools that we need are going to be in Energy Cap. If a rec leader wants to understand how their energy conservation program that they've implemented in the facility is working, we can share them a link, and they will have instant access to how their project is working. So there's a lot of tools that we can use to be able to share that information and feed into other projects that we're doing and working on.
Would you say that an LED project is kind of the most slam dunk retrofit that you can do these days?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, hands down. And it's something that we want to get to a point where we're not doing as much of them, but the city of Philadelphia has a lot of room to grow in that area. But we'd like for funding to start looking at what does a boiler replacement look like, what does a chiller replacement look like, in addition to an LED change out. But absolutely, LEDs are the first place we look.
Yeah, and I just thought of one more question that interests me in particular about Philadelphia, and that is, as you mentioned, Philadelphia has the mandatory benchmarking ordinance for facilities that are over 50,000 square feet, where they have to submit their data to the portfolio manager and then share it in order to comply. Have there been any studies done to indicate if this ordinance is having a net positive effect? In other words, is it worthwhile? Is it good legislation?
Yeah, that's a good question. The conversation has come up. We are in, I believe, our 4th or 5th year of benchmarking. And the last conversation we had around it was that we didn't feel like we had enough data yet to be able to make that decision, because we're just now getting to a point where we're approaching 85% compliance, where we had been at 60% compliance.
Wow.
Just wasn't enough data to really understand where we were coming from. So we're just getting to a point now where we have enough data to understand what the what the effects of the
results
of it was. So it's something that we're going to look toward doing probably in the next couple of years to make sure it's a policy that we should be implementing and continue to do.
Yeah.
But that's a great point.
I think I saw a study that was done on the New York City mandatory benchmarking. The rest can talk this afternoon.
My fault.
Benchmarking law. Yeah. that documented some range of savings. It was single-digit savings, I believe, but it was, greater than zero. It was 3 to 8% range or something like that. But I'm not sure who did the study, and if the people who did the study were maybe the same ones who were promoting some of these benchmarking laws. It just would be nice to see Philadelphia do that, and be another data point in answering the question if it's something that's really worth the effort in any municipality.
And I think that goes back to your point about the technology. There's going to have to be a crossover at some point, and maybe it's somebody in the private sector collects all that publicly accessible data, and they can create something that the public sector can use. So I'm not sure what that looks like, but I think that kind of tool would be of value to both public and private sectors.
Interesting. Good point. Well, Marty, always nice talking to you. Thank you very much for the time you spent now and also in preparation for this. We are very appreciative of it, and also very impressed by the progress that you're making and that the city is making in energy efficiency, and really being in a leadership role in showing how a very large $100 million spend organization can see some real positive bottom line results. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Wonderful talking with you, and
you as well.
We'll certainly be in touch. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.